They used to call him the King of Downtown. A man with power, presence, and a penthouse office overlooking the skyline. Marcus Wellington had it all: success, influence, and a reputation built over decades. But life doesn't always give warnings before the storm hits. In just a matter of weeks, his empire crumbled. From luxury boardrooms to back alleys. From million-dollar deals to silence and shame. And when the world turned its back, it wasn't the powerful friends or wealthy partners who came to help. It was someone he barely noticed, the woman who once brought him coffee every morning. But what happened next changed everything. The office was silent, except for the soft hum of city life beyond the glass. Marcus Wellington stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, hands in pockets, his eyes scanning the skyline like he owned it. And for a long time he did. His tailored suit hugged his frame with precision. His shoes, polished to a mirror shine, made no sound as he turned toward the long walnut conference table. A team of lawyers and executives sat waiting, documents neatly stacked, pens poised. Marcus didn't sit. He nodded once. "Let's sign." There was no grand speech, no flair, just quiet authority. The deal was done in under 4 minutes. A $72 million merger, sealed with a stroke of his Mont Blanc pen. Applause followed, but Marcus barely reacted. He offered a tight smile, shook a few hands, then stepped away. In his world, success wasn't celebrated, it was expected. The automatic doors to his office slid open with a soft hiss. Sarah Chin stepped in, holding a steaming cup of black coffee. Her posture was upright, respectful, but her smile, warm and knowing. "Good morning, Mr. Wellington. Your 10 a.m. is here." He took the coffee without looking at her. "Thank you, Sarah." He paused, then glanced up just for a second. Her presence lingered a moment longer than usual. She noticed but said nothing. Instead, she turned, heels clicking gently on the marble floor as she exited. Marcus stared at the door after she left. A flicker of thought crossed his face, quick, almost invisible. But it vanished as fast as it came. He sat behind his desk, the skyline still visible behind him. On the wall hung a photo of Marcus at 35, standing beside his father on the day he took over Wellington Industries. His father's hand rested proudly on his shoulder. Now, 15 years later, the company was 5 times bigger, his reach global, his power unmatched. But there were no photos of his family in the office. No signs of hobbies or life beyond business. Only contracts. Only goals. Only silence. The intercom buzzed. "Sir, the Tokyo call is ready." He didn't respond immediately. His eyes were fixed on the swirling steam rising from the coffee Sarah made. He took a sip. Still hot. Still perfect. Just the way he liked it. He closed his eyes for half a second, long enough to feel human, not just powerful. Then opened them. Put them through. And just like that, the machine turned again. Deals to close. People to impress. Legacies to protect. But that was just the beginning. The Tokyo call had just ended when Marcus's private line buzzed again. Not the usual polite chime. This one was sharp. Urgent. He glanced at the screen. Robert Lang, Lexington Holdings. He frowned. Robert never called during business hours. Marcus picked up. "Robert, what's going on?" There was a pause. Then a voice, measured, rehearsed. "Marcus, we need to talk. Not later. Now." Marcus sat up straight. "What is this about?" There was no greeting. No small talk. Robert exhaled audibly. "We're pulling out." Silence. Marcus blinked. "Pulling out of what?" "Everything, Marcus. Lexington Holdings, their biggest investor. The backbone of 3 current projects." His tone darkened. "You're joking." "I wish I were. But the board voted last night. We're reallocating our capital." Marcus stood abruptly, knocking over a glass of water. Shattered. Papers scattered to the floor. "Do you realize what this means?" "I do." Robert's voice was cold. Detached. "It's not personal." Marcus laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was rage. Desperation. "You said we were locked in for Q4. Until your audit raised concerns." Marcus froze. "What audit?" "I don't know the details. But someone flagged inconsistencies. The press is sniffing. Marcus's jaw clenched. His temples pulsed. This is a mistake. A misunderstanding. Robert didn't respond. Only silence. Then a soft click. He hung up. Marcus stared at the dead line, breath uneven. His hand trembled as he reached for the desk. The glass shards sparkled on the carpet like broken promises. Outside the office, Sarah paused. She was bringing the updated presentation for the next meeting. But something stopped her. The sound. Raised voices. Something crashing. She moved closer to the frosted glass door, unsure. Then, Marcus's voice. Oh, broken. Everything gone? She'd never heard him like this. Not in 10 years. Not even when his father passed away. Sarah's hand hovered near the door. But she didn't enter. Instead, she knocked gently. Sir, is everything all right? A long silence. Then Marcus's voice flat. I'm fine. But he wasn't. His posture was rigid. His eyes, empty. Sarah hesitated. Then slid the folder under the door. And walked away. Inside, Marcus loosened his tie. The phone buzzed again. Another message. Internal risk team requests immediate meeting. Urgent. He looked around his office. The art. The city view. The illusion of control. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel powerful. He felt small. A storm had begun, and he had no umbrella. It started with a headline. Wellington Industries under investigation for financial irregularities. Then came the second wave. Sources claim millions unaccounted for in CEO's overseas deals. Marcus stared at the screen, unmoving. His phone buzzed nonstop. Texts, emails, mentions. None of them good. Every news outlet wanted a statement. He gave none. He didn't even blink. Then came the calls, from investors, board members, legal teams. And then, no more calls. Only silence. The press swarmed the building within days. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted his name as he entered and exited the elevator, eyes down. Inside the office, whispers spread like wildfire. Employees packed up early, left without saying goodbye. The atmosphere turned cold. Sterile. Judging. He called people he trusted. Old friends. Partners. College roommates. But each call went to voicemail. Some never called back. Some blocked his number. The final blow came on a Thursday morning. Bank notice. Immediate foreclosure on personal and corporate assets. He read the words 3 times. Then again. Still didn't feel real. His townhouse in West Village? Gone. His accounts? Frozen. The company credit line? Revoked. Even his parking spot was reassigned by the end of the day. Marcus sat alone in his corner office, blinds half closed. The light outside felt distant. Muted. His world was imploding, quietly, systematically. Sarah knocked once before entering. She didn't speak. Just walked in and placed a plain cardboard box on his desk. No logos. No silver lettering. Just brown, ordinary human. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus nodded. She left the room, gently closing the door behind her. Marcus stood and walked slowly to the bookshelf. He touched the edge of a framed photo, him shaking hands with the mayor. He placed it in the box. Then his father's gold watch, which always sat beside the pen holder. Then a small paperweight Sarah gave him years ago, simple, glass engraved with, build, endure. He looked at it longer than the others. Then placed it on top. He didn't take much. Just what mattered. He didn't know why. Maybe to remember he once mattered. At the elevator he waited alone. No one made eye contact. As the doors opened, someone stepped aside without speaking. Not out of respect, but avoidance. Down in the lobby, the security guard didn't smile this time. No more nod. No, have a good evening, sir. Just a quiet glance. And a heavy door swinging open. Outside, the city moved on. Unbothered. Unaffected. Marcus clutched the box tighter as the wind picked up. His tie fluttered, then stilled. He turned one last time to look up at the building that bore his name. But it no longer felt like his. And for the first time in his life he had nowhere to go. Nowhere to be. No one to call. The man who once stood above the skyline was now just another name in a scandal. But something far more humbling was waiting for him next. Today, for reasons even he couldn't explain, Marcus returned to the office one last time. Not to fix anything. Not to fight. Just to sit. To say goodbye quietly. The office was no longer his. It looked the same furniture, same skyline view. But something had changed. Or maybe, everything had. Marcus sat alone at his desk, shoulders hunched, hands clasped tightly in front of him. The blinds were half shut. Outside, the sky was overcast, casting a dim blue-gray light across the room. The once vibrant space now felt cold. Muted. Stripped of life. The walls, once adorned with awards and sleek modern art, were bare. The shelves, emptied. The leather chair across from him? No longer turned toward a client, but facing the window, aimless. His box of personal items sat in the corner. Untouched since yesterday. He hadn't added anything since. Not because there wasn't more to take, but because he couldn't bring himself to touch it again. The quiet buzz of the building had faded. Most staff had left early. A few stayed late, whispering in the hallways, glancing through the glass walls but not daring to come in. And then, there was a soft knock. Sarah stepped in holding a cup of coffee. She didn't ask for permission. She didn't need to. Her presence was gentle, deliberate. She walked across the room slowly, the click of her heels barely audible on the carpet. Marcus didn't look up. His eyes were fixed on a point beyond the window, somewhere far away. Sarah set the coffee down. No coaster. No ceremony. Just a quiet gesture. "I made this the way you like it," she said softly. "One last time." Her voice lingered in the air, warmer than the room deserved. Marcus's jaw tensed. He didn't respond. He couldn't. She didn't expect him to. She stepped back but didn't leave right away. She looked at him, not with pity, not with judgment, but with something he hadn't seen in a long time. Kindness. Real, steady, wordless kindness. Marcus finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "I don't deserve that." Sarah tilted her head slightly. "You don't have to." He closed his eyes. Just for a second. Trying not to let the heat behind them spill forward. When he opened them, she was still there. Still waiting. Still him. "I let everyone down," he muttered. "Maybe," she replied. "But not everyone left." That hit harder than he expected. He turned away again, ashamed. "You should go," he whispered. She nodded once. Then paused. "I will," she said. "But for what it's worth. I never brought you coffee because you were the CEO." He looked at her, really looked like it was the first time. "I brought it because I saw the man behind the title. And today, I still do." She turned and walked to the door. The light caught her outline briefly before she stepped out. The door clicked shut, and Marcus just sat there, staring at the coffee cup on his desk. Steam rising slowly, fading into nothing, just like him. 3 months later, no one would have recognized him. The man who once signed million-dollar deals now waited in line for a free sandwich at a church shelter. Marcus sat alone on a splintered park bench, head down, face half hidden beneath a worn hoodie. His beard had grown uneven and patchy. His hair, once trimmed every Thursday, now curled over his ears. His shoes were scuffed, soles flapping, one lace tied with a knot of string. No phone. No wallet. Just a backpack that held everything he had left. A half-used journal. A cracked pair of glasses. A photo of him and his father, creased at the corners. Every morning he woke up to the same cold bench. Same pigeons. Same wind through bare branches. He would wash in public restrooms, cupping water in his hands like a ritual. He applied for jobs. Anything. Clerk. Loader. Dishwasher. No one called back. Sometimes they didn't even take his resume. One manager glanced at his name, blinked and muttered, "Wait, that Marcus Wellington?" He didn't stay long after that. Marcus stopped looking people in the eye. He stopped speaking unless spoken to. He learned the quiet rhythm of the street. When to sit. When to move. Where it was safe. Where it wasn't. He learned which shelters let you stay if you didn't smell too bad. Which corners got the least wind after midnight. He learned the rules of invisibility. Once he passed a former colleague near the subway entrance. The man looked at him, frowned faintly, and kept walking. Marcus didn't flinch, didn't call out, just lowered his eyes and kept going. Every day was the same. Until one wasn't. That day it rained. Not the kind that passed quickly, but a steady, cold, punishing drizzle. Marcus sat hunched beneath a plastic trash bag, pressed against the side of a building. His fingers numb, his breath fogging. A child passed by holding his father's hand. The boy turned and stared at him. His eyes, curious, unafraid. Marcus offered a half-smile. The boy waved. The father pulled him away. That small moment? It stayed with him all night. Later, curled up on a concrete slab under an awning, Marcus watched the city lights blur through the rain. He whispered into the dark. "Is this it?" No one answered. Not the sky. Not the street. Only the slow hum of tires on wet asphalt. And the rustle of old newspaper against his chest. He closed his eyes. And held on. Because some part of him, however small, still wanted to see tomorrow. The rain wouldn't stop. It was the kind of rain that soaked through everything: coats, socks, pride. Sarah clutched her umbrella tightly as she stepped off the crowded evening bus. The city lights shimmered through the downpour, turning the street into rivers of color. She sighed. Long day. 2 meetings had run late. Her mother's medication needed picking up. Dinner would be whatever she could find in the fridge. As she walked briskly past the alley near the corner deli, something caught her eye. A figure, hunched low, wrapped in a black plastic tarp. At first she didn't slow down. She'd seen people sleeping there before. But something in the way this man was sitting? Familiar. Rigid but defeated. Her steps faltered. She turned slightly. The tarp shifted. A man's face appeared, beard unkempt, eyes sunken, cheeks gaunt. He looked straight ahead, not even noticing her. But she noticed him. Her breath caught. She knew that jawline. That posture. That silence. "Mr. Wellington?" she whispered before she realized she was speaking. The man flinched. He looked up, slowly. Eyes glassy. He blinked. Confused. Then embarrassed. The recognition. Sarah? Her heart jumped. It was him. Marcus Wellington. The man who used to sit behind a mahogany desk in a penthouse office. Now crouched under a tarp in the rain, next to a leaking dumpster. She stepped forward without thinking. "My God. Marcus, what happened to you?" He tried to straighten but winced from the movement. His voice came out rough, like it hadn't been used in days. "Please don't, just go. I'm fine." "You're not fine. I don't need pity." "This isn't pity." He avoided her eyes. She knelt beside him, umbrella shielding both of them now. Rain dripped down her back. She didn't care. "I thought you left the city," she said gently. "I tried." Silence. He was shivering. Soaked through. Mouth trembling. "I didn't want anyone to see me like this." "Well," she said softly, "I see you now." He glanced at her. There it was again, that quiet, steady look of hers. The one that always saw past the suits and the power and the failures. "You shouldn't be here," he mumbled. "Neither should you." A beat. Then she stood and extended her hand. "Come with me." Marcus didn't move. I can't." "Why?" He looked down at himself. Wet clothes. Matted hair. No dignity left. "Because I'm not him anymore." Sarah didn't pull her hand back. "I know," she said. "And that's exactly why I'm here." He looked up again. And something broke. Not loudly. Not with a dramatic sob. Just a shift. In the way he blinked. In the way his shoulders sagged. He reached for her hand. And for the first time in months, Marcus stood up. The cab ride was silent. Marcus kept his eyes on the window, avoiding his reflection. His wet clothes left a dark stain on the seat, but the driver didn't say anything. Sarah sat beside him, arms folded, quietly watching the city rush by. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. 20 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a modest brick building. No doorman. No valet. Just a rusted gate and 3 flights of stairs. "This is me," Sarah said softly. Marcus hesitated before following her up. His knees ached from nights on concrete. He moved slower now. At the third floor, she unlocked the door and stepped inside. A small apartment. Warm. Lived in. Soft yellow lighting spilled over a simple couch, bookshelves stuffed with novels and old magazines, a dining table with mismatched chairs. Marcus stood in the doorway, unsure. Sarah turned back to him. "You can come in." He nodded once. Stepped in. Stood awkwardly, as if afraid to touch anything. Sarah walked to the kitchen. "No allergies, right?" He blinked. "What?" "To food." "Oh, no. None." She nodded and began opening cabinets. Within minutes, the scent of garlic and broth filled the space. Marcus sat slowly on the edge of the couch. He glanced at the framed photos, Sarah and her mother in a park, Sarah holding a graduation cap. No luxury. Just memories. Real ones. When she returned with a tray, she placed it on the coffee table. 2 bowls. Rice. Egg drop soup. A slice of warm bread. Marcus stared at it. Then at her. He swallowed hard. "You didn't have to." "I know." He picked up the spoon, hands trembling slightly. Took a bite. Closed his eyes. It had been weeks since something warm touched his stomach. The moment hit him harder than expected. He set the spoon down and leaned forward, covering his face with both hands. His shoulders shook. He didn't make a sound. But he cried. Sarah didn't rush over. She didn't pat his back or whisper, "It's okay." She just sat with him. Let him fall apart. Let him be human. Finally he spoke, barely a whisper. "Why are you helping me? After everything. After who he used to be. After how he used to act." Sarah looked at him, calm, steady. "Because that's what decent people do." That answer sat between them for a long time. Simple. Solid. Unshakable. Later, she handed him a towel and a clean t-shirt and sweatpants. "They'll probably be a little small." He nodded. Took them. Went into the bathroom. Hot water ran for a long time. When he stepped out, he looked different. Not new, but less broken. Sarah had laid a blanket and pillow on the couch. Marcus hesitated. Then sat. Then lay down. The couch creaked under his weight. He stared at the ceiling. "Thank you," he whispered. Sarah turned off the kitchen light. "Good night, Marcus." The room dimmed. But for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel dark. The first few days passed slowly, quietly. Marcus kept to himself, barely speaking. He would sit on the couch most of the day, staring at the window or the floor. But Sarah didn't push. She moved around the apartment with gentle ease, cooking, folding laundry, humming softly to herself. Each morning she left early for work. Before leaving, she always placed a note beside a plate of toast and boiled eggs. "Try to eat something today." Or, "Stretch a little if you feel up to it." Sometimes he did. Sometimes he didn't. But he always read the notes. And folded them neatly into his jacket pocket. One afternoon, she came home to find him standing in the kitchen. Just standing. Awkward. Lost. She smiled. "Hungry?" He shrugged. "I thought I could help set the table." "You just did." Dinner that night was a simple stir-fry. They ate in silence at first. But halfway through the meal, Marcus asked, "How's your mom?" Sarah looked up, surprised. "She's stable. Needs physical therapy. But she's stubborn." "She's lucky," he said softly. They didn't say much else that night. But the wall had cracked. A few days later, Sarah returned from work with a small bag in her hand. "Let's do something about that hair," she said, pulling out a pair of scissors. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You cut hair now?" "I YouTube well." He laughed just a little. It felt strange in his own throat. But good. He sat on a stool and Sarah carefully combed through his thick, matted hair. Each snip felt like letting go of something he didn't need anymore. Grime. Shame. The past. When she was done, he looked in the mirror. He didn't recognize the man staring back. But he didn't hate him either. Later that evening, they sat on the floor, sharing leftover soup and crackers. The lights were dim. The air smelled of lemon from a candle Sarah had lit. He looked at her and said, "I used to think people only loved you when you had something to offer." Sarah didn't answer right away. Then, "A lot of people do." But you didn't. She nodded. I loved being your assistant. Marcus looked at her, curious. I don't mean the job, she continued. I loved being someone you trusted. Even when you didn't realize it. He was quiet. Then whispered, I didn't make it easy. No, she smiled. But you didn't scare me either. That night he didn't sleep on the couch. He lay awake for hours thinking. Not about what he'd lost, but what he still had. Someone who saw him at his lowest. And didn't leave. That, he realized, was the beginning of healing. It started small. A smile at breakfast. A question about his dreams. A shared joke over badly burnt toast. Marcus didn't know when things began to feel different. Maybe it was the night she came home late, soaked from the rain, yet still smiled when she saw him waiting with a warm towel. Or maybe it was the way she always cut her apple in half and gave him the bigger piece. Little things. Always quiet. Always steady. Sarah never said much about her own life. But one night, Marcus found her asleep on the couch with hospital papers in her lap. He gently picked them up, physical therapy notes. Her mother's name at the top. 3 appointments a week. Each one across town. Each one paid in cash. The next morning he watched her leave the apartment at 6 a.m. She came back at 9 p.m. Every day. Still made dinner. Still smiled. Still checked if he had enough socks. He waited until she sat down one night, exhausted, sipping reheated tea. I didn't know you were working 2 jobs. Sarah looked up, surprised. It's temporary. Is it? She didn't answer right away. Just said, Mom needs the care. And someone has to pay the rent. He nodded slowly. You didn't have to take me in. I know. You didn't have to stay. I know that too. He stared at her. Then softly, You're the richest person I know, Sarah. She laughed. A small breathy sound. Rich? I have 1 working lamp and a toaster that burns everything. I mean here, Marcus said, pointing to his chest. You have more in here than anyone I've ever met. She looked at him for a long time. No walls between them now. No hierarchy. No debt. Just 2 people, on the same floor, sharing the same roof, breathing the same air. You know, she whispered, when I first met you, I thought you were the coldest man I'd ever seen. He smirked. Was I? Oh, absolutely. But also, the loneliest. Silence. Then he reached across the table and gently took her hand. She didn't flinch. Didn't pull away. Just squeezed back, once. That night the city felt quieter. As if the world had stepped back. And made room for something small and real. Not fireworks. Not declarations. Just understanding. Just love. The email sat in the drafts folder for 3 days. Marcus wrote it. Deleted it. Wrote it again. Then stared at it. What if he doesn't remember me? He asked one night, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah was folding laundry on the couch. He will. He might think I'm just trying to use him. Then don't ask for help. Offer help. That stuck with him. The next morning he clicked send. It went to Daniel Reyes, a former client. A man Marcus once pulled out of a tough contract negotiation 5 years ago. Back then Marcus was the powerful one. Now he was writing from Sarah's email account, asking if they could talk. No title. No office. Just honesty. 3 days later the reply came. Come by the cafe on 6th. I'm curious. Marcus stared at it for a long time. Then closed the laptop. His hands were shaking. Sarah placed a hand on his shoulder. You got this. The meeting was awkward at first. Marcus wore his best second-hand blazer and a clean shirt Sarah had pressed for him. Daniel looked older. Wiser. He raised an eyebrow but smiled when he saw Marcus. No entourage today? Marcus chuckled nervously. Just me now. Daniel ordered 2 coffees and listened. Marcus spoke clearly. Not trying to impress. Not trying to reclaim anything. Just explaining what happened. And what he hoped to rebuild. Daniel didn't speak for a while. Then leaned back. I've seen worse comebacks, he said. Marcus exhaled. He hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath. Let me send you some numbers. It's a small project. But it might be a start. And that was all he needed. Back at Sarah's apartment, Marcus set up shop on the corner of the dining table. Old laptop. Sticky notes. A calculator with a missing button. He worked until midnight. Then 2 a.m. Then 5. Sarah woke up to the sound of typing. She smiled sleepily, peeked around the corner, and saw him hunched over spreadsheets. Focused. Alive. Every day Marcus worked. He made mistakes. Revised. Learned. Improved. One night, he burned his dinner trying to cook for them both. They ate cereal and laughed. Another day, he submitted a proposal and got his first payment in months. Not a check with 6 zeros. But enough to feel real. Enough to feel earned. Marcus stared at the emailed receipt like it was a trophy. When he looked up, Sarah was standing in the doorway. Smiling. He smiled back. They didn't need to say anything. Hope had quietly moved in. And taken root. The proposal had taken him 2 weeks. Every detail checked. Every line rewritten. Sarah reviewed it 3 times. Quietly. Supportively. Marcus sent it off with shaky fingers and no expectations. But 5 days later, Daniel replied with one word. Approved. Marcus stared at the screen in disbelief. Then read it again. And again. His hands trembled. His chest tightened, but this time not from fear. From something lighter. Brighter. The first step back. The project began right away. It wasn't glamorous. A rebranding campaign for a small logistics startup. Tight budget. Tighter deadline. But Marcus treated it like it was his last shot. He worked through weekends. Ate dinner while sketching branding drafts. Left sticky notes all over Sarah's apartment. When Sarah offered to help with spreadsheets, he smiled. I thought you didn't miss the job. She smirked. I don't. I just hate seeing you use Comic Sans. They laughed. Worked side by side. Day by day, something rebuilt between them. Not just business. Trust. Respect. Joy. And when the final pitch went out, the client replied in 20 minutes. This is exactly what we need. A week later, the payment arrived. Marcus held the check like it was a fragile piece of glass. His name printed clearly. 6 months since he'd seen that. 6 months since he felt like a man again. That night, he waited for Sarah to get home. She walked in, tired, carrying groceries. He stood in the middle of the living room, holding the envelope. She blinked. What's that? He handed it to her. My first check. Since everything. She smiled. Slow. Proud. He stepped closer. I want you to have part of it. Sarah frowned. Why? Because you saved me. Because you believed in me when I couldn't. Because none of this would have happened without you. She looked down at the envelope. Then back at him. Marcus? No, I'm serious. Take half. She took a deep breath. Then shook her head gently. Keep it. He stared at her. Please? Keep it, she said again. Invest in yourself. That's all I ever wanted. Silence. And then his eyes welled. He tried to speak, but no words came out. Sarah stepped forward, wrapped her arms around him. He held on like a man gripping the edge of a cliff, not out of fear, but because she was his anchor. And for the first time he believed he might make it back. The new office wasn't glamorous. A second-floor walk-up above a laundromat. Peeling paint. Flickering lights. 1 desk. 2 chairs. But it was his. Marcus stared at the keys in his hand for a full minute before unlocking the door. Sarah stood beside him, holding 2 coffees and a potted plant. Ready? She asked. He nodded. I think so. They stepped inside. No reception. No skyline view. Just space and a chance. Within a week, Marcus had a working internet connection, an old whiteboard from a thrift store, and Sarah officially on board. He didn't call her his assistant. He called her his partner. It felt right. Together they redid his portfolio. Updated contact lists. Reached out to old clients. Some ignored them. Some replied politely. And some, surprisingly, said yes. It started slow. A logo redesign for a bakery. A marketing plan for a retired vet's woodworking business. Nothing big. But each one mattered. They celebrated every signed contract with coffee and leftover pizza. Late nights turned into early mornings. They wrote proposals side by side, sometimes bickering over fonts, sometimes laughing until one of them snorted. Marcus stopped wearing suits. Sarah stopped apologizing for her ideas. They grew into the business together. Steady. Honest. One Tuesday afternoon, Marcus walked into the office and found Sarah painting one wall a soft green. He just watched her for a moment, then smiled. Looks good. Feels better, she said, dipping her brush again. By month 4 they had 5 recurring clients. By month 6 they'd hired a part-time designer. Marcus bought a modest townhouse across town. Nothing fancy. 2 bedrooms. Old floors. A small yard. But it had sunlight in the mornings. And a quiet kind of hope. He brought Sarah there on a Sunday. The keys jingled nervously in his hand. She looked around the empty living room, then at him. It's cute. It's home, he said quietly. She smiled. Then turned toward the window. Big step. Yeah. Pause. Then he spoke again. I was thinking. She raised an eyebrow. Maybe you'd want to move in. Sarah blinked. Like, as your roommate? Like as my partner. Not in business. Not just that. She didn't answer right away. But she didn't look away either. Her fingers brushed the edge of the window frame. She smiled softly. I'll bring the toaster. And in that moment, without a ring or a vow or a single kiss, they became something real. It started with a phone call Marcus never expected to get. Robert Lang. Lexington Holdings. The same man who pulled the rug out from under him a year ago. Now he wanted to meet. Marcus stared at the contact name on his screen for a full minute before answering. Robert. Marcus. We should talk. 2 days later they met at a downtown hotel bar. High-end. Discreet. Just like the old days. Robert looked exactly the same. Tailored suit, smooth voice, calculating smile. Marcus didn't bother dressing up. He came in a plain shirt, clean but simple. He had nothing to prove. They sat. Small talk. Then the pitch. Lexington was expanding again. They needed a boutique firm to lead creative on a billion-dollar merger campaign. Robert leaned in. I've been watching you, he said. You fell hard. But you didn't disappear. Marcus said nothing. Robert sipped his drink. I like that. Grit. Humility. People love a comeback. Then the offer. Big money. High visibility. A chance to be on top again. And just one condition. You'll need to rebrand your team, Robert said casually. Marcus narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? Robert shifted. Your partner. Sarah Chin. Marcus's jaw tightened. She's not a fit for the kind of image we're building. Great story, sure. But long-term? Not marketable. Silence. You're serious? Robert nodded. This is a rare door, Marcus. Clean team. Clean visuals. Clean history. Marcus stared at the table. He remembered the couch. The soup. The sleepless nights with her working beside him. He remembered the hand that reached for him under the rain. Choose wisely, Marcus, Robert said, voice smooth. This is your shot. Marcus stood. He didn't say anything. Didn't shake hands. He just walked out. Back at the office, Sarah was editing a proposal. Marcus stepped in quietly. She looked up. Saw his face. Paused. What happened? He didn't answer right away. Just walked over and sat beside her. They offered me everything, he said. She didn't move. And? He turned to her. They wanted me to fire you. She blinked. A beat. Then nodded. I get it. I said no. Sarah looked at him. Really looked. You did. I'd rather build something small with you than sell my soul for something shiny. She smiled. Tired. Relieved. Well, you just turned down $1 billion campaign. He shrugged. I already have everything I need. And for the first time, he felt completely free. Sarah found the email late at night. I know Marcus won't say this, but you're holding him back. He deserves more. Robert Lang. No signature. Just that sentence. And a seed of doubt. She didn't sleep. The next morning she came into the office early, typed a resignation letter, printed it, folded it neatly, and left it on Marcus's desk. Then she sat at her usual spot, pretending nothing had changed. Marcus arrived half an hour later. Saw the envelope. Opened it. Paused. Then walked over and held it out to her. She didn't look at him. I didn't want to make things harder. You're not. You could have had everything, she whispered. I already do. She finally looked up. Eyes uncertain. Robert reached out, she admitted. Said I'd cost you more than you realize. Marcus didn't flinch. He already did. Once. I didn't want to be the reason you don't rise again. He sat beside her. You're the reason I ever stood back up. She blinked fast. He leaned closer. Sarah, he said. You are my success. Without you being on top means nothing. Her voice cracked. You don't mean that. I do. And she believed him. She took the envelope from his hand, tore it in half, and dropped it in the trash. Quietly. No drama. Just peace. They sat in silence for a while. Then got back to work. Together. 2 years later, Marcus and Sarah didn't return to power. They built something better, together. A small studio. A quiet home. A life rooted in trust, not titles. They weren't rebuilding the past. They were writing something new. And one sunny morning, in a garden full of light, they exchanged vows. No spotlight. No crowd. Just two hands holding on. They didn't need a big comeback. Because they already had everything that mattered. They say success is what you gain. But real wealth is who stays when you lose it all. If this story moved you, leave a comment, give it a like, and subscribe to Soul Tales. We share stories where love heals, hope returns, and kindness always wins. Don't forget to turn on the bell. The next story might just stay with you forever.